Well, today you join me on the banks of Fishery, and I'm down here for the next 24 hours or so. I've booked a 36-hour ticket. It's all bookable through the Catch website or the Catch app, depending on what one you prefer. I use the website just because I spend a lot of time on a Mac and it's nice and simple. It took me a couple of minutes to find it, to book it, and we are in Brentwood in Essex. So just the other side of the Dartford Tunnel, to give you some sort of context of actually where it is. It's a very unique lake, so it's not an exclusive booking. Anyone can fish here. There's basically two lakes on the complex. There's a syndicate over the far side and then there's a day ticket. But even the day ticket feels very much like a syndicate. It's really nice, it's really quiet. There's only two other people on and we're in mid-May now, so it's probably prime time to actually be fishing for the fish that are in here. We come on to stock and a little bit more about the lake a bit later in this video. But for now, as you can see, I've got all my gear around and there's a lot of fish floating about on the surface. So I've already pinged a few little floating pellets out and the ducks have cleared them up. But amongst the ducks, there has been a few fish mooching about as well. So I think the first order of the day is to try and catch one off the top. Let's try and get them floated up. Now there is one just out here that's been taken really confidently. And I've just pinged a few more floaters around him. And to be fair, that hookbait's not far off him, but he's gone a little bit quieter. Oh, he's coming back up and taking again. There's a chance of a really quick bite here, I think. I don't know if you just heard that, but there's definitely a lot of fish in them pads. Surface-wise, they've done the off a little bit. Clouds come over, it's not quite as bright and sunny, and there's still a few bits around on the surface, but there's not that much. So I'm going to get myself a little bit sorted, get the rods out, and I'm definitely heading towards them lilies. Now, the swim doesn't go out that far, so you can't actually get tucked in tight to them, but they're definitely going to be going in and out of them. There's a lot of fish in there, so I think that's a good chance of a bite. So yeah, a couple of rods on the deck. If I notice a lot of fish moving about again, then I will put some zigs out, especially if the sun comes out again, then there's a good chance of them moving up and down the layers. But I think for now, it's looking really good for a bite on the bottom. So now the rods are out and I've actually got myself a little bit sorted behind. I'm going to tell you a bit more about the lakes themselves. And like I said earlier, I am at Fisheries, which is, it's about 15 minutes from Brentwood. So if you use Brentwood as your marker, it's not far from there. I found it on the Catch app. I was just searching around for lakes fairly close to me and this one popped up. Basically, there's two lakes set amongst 12 acres of Essex countryside. And both of the lakes are completely tree lined. They're really nice, mature lakes. The far lake, ironically called Faraway, is actually a syndicate, and then I'm on Tillingham Lake, which is the day ticket. I was speaking to Bill earlier, who runs the complex, and he's been running it since about 1998, so he's seen it from pretty much a hole in the ground to what it is today, which is a really nice, mature lake. It's a very quiet place. Apparently at night it's pitch black, there's no light pollution, so it's really good for stars and things like that, and there's a lot of wildlife and bits around. You can probably see all the bugs flying about where there's so much vegetation, and it's just that time of year. But yeah, the actual aesthetics of the lake, it is very, very nice. And I mentioned earlier, it feels like a syndicate, and it really does. I've been here since about 10, half 10 this morning, and I've not seen anyone come round. And that's because the gate at the entrance is actually locked. It's a coded gate. So when you book through Catch, you end up getting the code, and then that's what allows you in. So nobody has access to that code other than those that have booked it. So nobody can just come in and walk around and come up to you when you're having a nice peaceful time saying, oh, how are you doing, that kind of thing. It's only the people that are actually meant to be on the complex that can be here, which is really nice. Now going back to the actual lakes, like I say, there's two on the complex. I'd imagine they're about 5 acres each. It's a 12-acre complex. They're both square lakes. They're both very similar in terms of shape and style, and that's because of the way that they were dug originally. You've basically got an arm coming out on either lake, and the arm isn't fishable. You can't get onto it, there's no access to it, but it comes out and it divides up the lake quite nicely. So you've basically got swims all the way around the lake, which can access the arm. Some swims are blocked off to stop people crossing over each other's lines and that sort of thing. So on this day ticket one, there's actually 15 swims, but there's only a maximum of 10 people that are allowed to book it. So that gives you a bit of room to move around if you need to. It gives you a bit more space to fish. Yeah, it gives you a lot of water. And at the moment, there's only 3 people on here, so there's plenty of water. I've basically got the whole left-hand side of the lake as I'm looking at it. So there's loads of room, loads of exploring. There's 2 guys down on the bank towards the car park. So yeah, there's a lot of water and a lot of potential to kind of splay your rods out. Obviously, if people turn up, you've got to be a bit more sensible and fish more within your water. But if there's room and you can fish safely from your swim into different areas, then why not? It's kind of fair game. Like I say, the arm is actually fishable from most areas of the lake. It's probably quite a chuck from this road bank. I'd say maybe 120, 130 yards, but it is still doable. And the arm is actually, it looks quite enticing. There's a lot of overhanging trees. It looks a pretty good area that could hold some fish. At the moment though, I've got my rods into the pads because I've seen a lot of fish in there and there's a lot of activity. So it's only a matter of time before they start moving in and out, especially as time's getting on a little bit. But the swims themselves, they're quite nicely spaced out. And like I said, there's always going to be 5 swims free. So you don't feel like you're going to be slotting in anywhere. But there's also a lot of room as well. So I've got quite a big bivvy behind me. I've got a Nash Titan. So that's actually a pretty big one-man bivvy and there's ample room. Still leaves loads of room to sit in front of it. And there's a pathway that basically runs in between. So all the swims have got loads of room. So you can have your bivvy behind the pathway and then your rods just in front. Where the rods are, there's actually like it's not a platform, it's made out of sleepers and you can actually get bank sticks into them as well. All I would say is over summer it's probably going to be a little bit tougher, but it's still more than doable, which is quite nice. In terms of the stock, there's quite a high stock supposedly of carp. I don't know actual numbers, but I've been told it's quite a high stock. And there are catfish as well. I think the carp run up to about mid-30s, with the average size being about 20 pounds, something like that. So if I do get one, there's a good chance of it being a nice one. And from the fish I've seen jumping about, they're nice dark ones as well. So I'm really hoping that I can get amongst them. Catfish, they do go big, very big. And when I was talking to Bill earlier, the guy that runs it, he said that someone had a 109 pound and 104 pound catfish out on the same session. So you know about it if you hook one of them. And I have actually seen a tail, like a catfish tail, splash out over my spot and then a load of bubbles come up where it's obviously hoovered something up afterwards. Luckily, it didn't hoover my hook bait, but I don't know what the rest of the session will bring. If they're more, obviously they're going to be more active at night. So there's a chance that I could end up with a catfish rather than a carp, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to carry on pinging mixers out into the evening because sometimes just on dusk can be a really good time to get them off the surface. But for the meantime, I'm going to keep pinging boilies out into that area because I do think that they are going to drop down out of them lilies, and there's a nice area, nice kind of bowl in front of the lilies that could do a couple of fish, I think, tonight. Well, with time getting on a little bit now, I do want to get everything sorted ready for the night. Got another couple of hours of daylight, but I want everything to be bang on. So I've brought the 2 rods back in. They're obviously both fishing over to the pads. They haven't done a lot. And I mean, now is the time that they will start dropping down and feeding. But I'm going to change things a little bit. So I'm going to keep the left rod on the pads. And then I've found another spot. It's only about 9 wraps out, but there's been a couple of fish show on it. And I've done a little bit of leading about. And it felt actually really nice and clean. Not gravelly, because it's basically a clay pit here, but it felt really smooth and then pulled into a little bit of silt. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little bit of bait out on that area as well, and I'm going for boilie and pellet. It gives me a couple of areas, so if one starts producing and one's not, then I can move a rod over to whichever is producing, but it's a couple of different baiting approaches as well. So catapulting out just boilie into the pads, and then spomming out a little bit of bait in a smaller area on an open water spot. The pellets could work for me or against me. I'm hoping that it's going to help the carp kind of come in on it and feed and hold them there that bit longer, but it could also bring in the catfish as well. The bigger pellets that I'm actually using are Cremino, so they're not a fish meal based pellet, but I have got some micro pellet which is fish meal based. It could work either way. If I do end up with a catfish, it's not the end of the world. I've never had a big one, so it would be quite interesting if I do. But yeah, that's the approach I'm going with. So I'm going to get a bit of bait out now. Not loads, probably 5 or 6 spoms of each. Just enough to have a little area in there. If I start seeing fish show on it, then I'll get a few more out. Or, you know, if I get a bite, then I'll keep it topped up. But that is the plan for this evening. So the fact that this is more about the venue than anything, does that mean we don't have to address that I didn't catch anything last night? Is that okay? Jokes aside, yes, it was a struggle last night. I really thought we were going to have something. It looked really good for it coming into the evening. There's a lot of fish crashing about. I was in the right area as well, but it just didn't happen. And I got a pretty sleepless night as well. The cats were slapping about on the surface. The frogs were croaking. It well and truly is spring, but unfortunately the carp weren't feeding. And this morning I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. I've been up since about 4:30. I've been baiting up, I've been putting spoms of mixers out, and I've probably done that on 5 or 6 different occasions, probably putting 6 or 7 spoms out, and the odd fish will take the odd one and then they all just drift away and nothing more comes from it. So like I say, it's not through the lack of trying. I definitely have persevered, and I've kept baiting up the spots. I've kept kind of looking out for signs of fish, and yeah, it just hasn't happened. But like I say, this is all about the fishery itself and about catch. And I said yesterday, obviously I booked this through Catch. This is one of various fisheries available on the Catch website and app. And obviously, like I said, I booked it through the website, but it's also available on an app on your phone. So that is what I'm going to show you now. Just a very quick run through. Most of you guys probably by this point know exactly what Catch is. You've probably used it yourself and you don't need this run through. But if you don't know what it is, it's basically an app that's been developed and it has a whole host of different fisheries. I think they're getting close to 100 different fisheries now on its books. You can book everything through it. You can book your swim on some venues. You can book certain dates, how many anglers, how many rods, all sorts you can choose on the app. So if I open it quickly, it will go to the home screen and instantly you are shown a little search bar. Where would you like to fish? In this case, obviously we are fishing in Brentwood. So if I search Brentwood, UK, not USA, and you can skip dates, you can skip the tickets for now, and then it will just show you the fisheries that are near Brentwood. Obviously the first one that comes up is Par Fisheries, which is where we are, and then there's a couple of others as well. So once you actually go onto the fishery or once you click onto a fishery, it will then tell you a bit more about it, and it gives you an overview of the lake. It's got the stock in, it's got facilities and all sorts of that you need to know really. It also shows you the actual lake from above, so you've got a bit of an idea of what you're turning up to before you even book it, which is really handy. And there is a gallery of the lake and of some of the fish and bits and pieces that you would expect to find in here. So unfortunately, on this session, I haven't been lucky enough to see one of them fish actually in the flesh. I've seen loads of them floating about, but not actually on the bank. So I will be coming back here because it is a lovely fishery. And like I said, throughout the course of this video, it really does feel like a syndicate. There's a couple more people turned up today, but you're pretty much left to it to do things how you want to do them. Obviously there are rules, and as soon as you come in, there is a rule board, but they're all sensible rules as well. So I'm going to leave you on that. Hopefully this video has been interesting, and if you are thinking of fishing in the Essex area, Brentwood in particular, then it's well worth heading over here because it is a really nice fishery. And like I say, I'll be back because I do want to see some of these fish on the bank. I think I've been unlucky. It's always weird around spawning, but it just hasn't happened. But thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.